This is Tim,
I'm Mulele.
and this is Critiquing Comics. Welcome to Critiquing Comics. This is Tim with Mulele in Tokyo on Skype, and we just had a rain and hailstorm here. Did you have anything?
My curtains are closed, but I've been hearing thunder all day.
Yeah.
Well, it looks kind of dry outside, but the sky looks kind of dismal.
Yeah, Mulele is far enough from me that we wouldn't necessarily have the same weather at the same time, but and I wasn't really paying it. I thought it was kind of noisy, and then my daughter was sending pictures from the house of hail all over the ground outside the window. Like, oh, that's why it was so noisy.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Anyway, so after my vacation and all the discussion that led to, we're pretty far behind on our queue of submitted comics. So trying to get back to business here. So we got a couple comics to talk about. Let's start with Raptor Cop.
Okay.
Subtitle, The Battle with Willie the Worm.
Yep.
And this is by John, how do you pronounce that? Pedicini? And I take it he's the writer and the artist. There is a credit for the cover art by someone else whose name I really can't pronounce. It looks like a Slavic name. Ogi Grujic. I'm sure I messed that up. Anyway, so Willie the Worm, in the title of this issue, is a villain who sends flesh-eating worms to attack people. And they apparently eat the person down to bones in seconds. So those are some hungry worms.
Oh, yeah.
And some pretty gruesome scenes in the comic in a couple places. And, well, I'll get to the character Raptor Cop in a minute. But, I don't know, I felt like the art in the comic is fairly accomplished, and the story is okay, but the storytelling in places was pretty wonky. I have numerous examples. I'll give a few and then shut up and let you point out some others maybe. So in the first scene, we have what appears to be an elderly woman in a jewelry store. And we see a worm coming from her sleeve, and then pretty soon there are a bunch of worms and they eat the store clerk. And what I found a little odd was that the elderly woman, I mean, she is a bit large, but her hand looks quite feminine. And then it turns out that she's actually Willie the Worm in disguise, and he's this really buff, tough guy with much more masculine looking hands. So I wasn't sure how he had that feminine hand when he was in disguise. And then when he comes out of the jewelry store, there are police everywhere, and somehow he's got this big, like, military Humvee with a machine gun mounted on the top. I don't know how he got it in the jewelry store. And also, what's kind of odd was it seems like he has henchmen. He's talking to them in one panel after the woman is eaten. Yeah. And they're also apparently driving the Humvee, but we don't actually see them in that scene at all.
Right.
Which is a little disorienting. Now, the scene after this I found very puzzling. Panel 1, flames coming from a microwave oven.
Yep.
Panel 2, guy half asleep with hand on alarm clock. Panel 3, he's putting on his police uniform and he sees smoke coming from the kitchen. Panel 4, he's in the kitchen and the sprinkler system has come on. Panel 5, he's opened the microwave, he has a slice of pizza in his hand and says, "So much for breakfast pizza." Now, did he have the microwave on some kind of a timer to come on in the morning? I mean, I'm sure he wasn't nuking the pizza all night, but why did it catch fire? I had a lot of questions about that scene. It just didn't make sense to me.
Do microwaves have auto timers?
I've not been aware of any. It might be possible, but I really needed some explanation of why that pizza was in a microwave oven that was on while he was asleep. Mm. And here and there are many examples of word balloons that are arranged badly so that I was reading the wrong one first. Really needs to be not only top to bottom, but also left to right. And he seemed to be banking on only top to bottom, even if the top one was way off to the right and the next one was way off to the left.
Yeah.
And I had more, but I'll let you talk. What did you think of this?
I thought that the artwork was quite accomplished, but he really didn't understand storytelling. And even the writing, there were lots of problems with setups and completion of scenes. Nothing is set up properly, nothing is paid off exactly, and there seems to it's like he learned storytelling from TV, but didn't watch the entire program. Just kind of half looked at the first scene and said, yeah, I got it, and then moved on to comics. There's a lot of that stuff, and other logistic things like the "kick me, I'm stupid" sign is on his butt instead of his back. And usually you can put a sign on someone's back by slapping them on the back and saying, "Hey, see you later, buddy," and then there's a sign there. That's so they don't feel you putting it on. But am I to believe that he didn't feel the guy touching his ass to put the sign, or that he slapped his buddy's ass saying "see you later," and that's when the sign appeared? It's a little bit, logistically, it's a little weird. And it's also weird that, okay, you wake up, you put on your uniform, you're drenched, you don't change into another uniform because I would expect that you have more than one. But you get into your work buddy's car with the work dog, you're going to go to work, but then suddenly you're at a party with kids. And I understand what that was about. And then the bit with the bad guy and the worms and the hostage and the jewelry store, all of this stuff didn't quite make sense. Although I kind of knew I was in trouble when the bad guy said, "Everyone down on the floor, stash the loot, and let's get a move on." Who's he talking to? Is
exactly those invisible henchmen.
Yeah, but also number two, everyone down on the floor. And then the next sentence doesn't have a subject. So
the first sentence is for the other people in the bank, and the second one is for his henchmen.
Yeah, but there's it's all in one word balloon, and the word balloon, the words go out to the very edge of the word balloon, and sometimes they even touch the black letters to the black edge of the word balloon, and it even makes it's ugly as hell, and it makes it hard to read sometimes. And this should have been two word balloons. And when you've got a black space above the picture, why cover the picture? So there are so many problems here. And it's really a shame because the artwork is so good. And he obviously worked quite hard on it. But seriously, if he wants to excel in comics, first of all, fire the writer, which means fire yourself halfway, and learn under a different, more experienced writer. Because for the writing, you don't have it. Not in the setups and payoffs of any comic scene. Not in the sense of drama. Not in the sense of the grammar of dialogue. It's just missing on so many levels here. And also, one last thing that kind of really stuck out and bothered me was timing of this whole thing.
Mm.
So there's the heist, and then the guy wakes up, gets in a car, goes to a birthday party, then gets to work. And then the heist is still going on. They're like running around the university for some reason, because bad guys with tribal tats usually go to universities to kind of lay low. They grab a professor. Oh, and the professor is called, I can't find it. Sorry. But there was somewhere I was reading, and they say a line of dialogue like, he's got a female.
Yeah, that's on page 10, the third panel.
Yeah, what the hell?
There's a female back there who is being held by Willie and his gang.
There we go. Yeah, there's a female back there. I'm sorry. Women usually aren't referred to as females in this way. You want to say something like female and then a noun, use it as an adjective, that's good. But just as a noun by itself, it's kind of offensive.
It could be taken as police jargon, but I don't know.
No, that's not police jargon. No, that's actually rather bad slang. And you hear it a lot in rap music, and you hear it a lot in Southern culture. I should say American South, not South America. But it's not correct, and I wouldn't allow it as jargon. That seems a little odd to me. So anyway, later in the comic, for some reason they've got the hostage in a coffin with a pipe sticking out of the ground, and the Raptor cop, after he becomes a raptor, finds it by chance and saves her. And he opens the coffin, and what? There's a snake in the coffin?
Apparently.
Yeah, right. So like none of this stuff makes sense to me. As okay, if there's a snake in the coffin, why didn't it bite her? If there was a snake in the coffin, what was the purpose of that snake? Why?
Yeah, you can see it kind of wrapped around her when she's in the coffin under the ground, but I don't. Yeah, apparently it didn't bite her or anything.
But why though? Some sort of like ultra jeopardy. Not only is she in a coffin that she can't escape from. They gave her a little light because they're polite about it, with wires leading off to the side, as if it's connected to some other place, like the house down the street. I mean, the whole idea is a little bit wonky, but yeah, none of that makes sense. I have no idea what he's on about. And we do finally get to the battle between Willie the Worm, was that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah. Willie the Worm and Raptor Cop, where Willie the Worm turns into a man covered in worms, and which apparently makes him bulletproof. And just as they're about to like get into it, that's where it ends. Now the ending point is fine, dramatic cliffhanger, but to be honest, the story has done nothing to build any sort of stakes or tension here. Don't care if this female gets eaten by a snake, by worms, or by the Raptor Cop himself. I have no sympathy for a Raptor Cop, and I have no special dislike or like for Willie the Worm. A lot of the characters just make me go, huh? But the artwork is very well developed. Mm-hmm. So it seems like he spent a lot of time making the artwork, but no time making the plot. It's very lopsided for that.
I had one other storytelling problem that really stuck out for me. Back at the university. I guess I sort of missed it. At the very beginning of that scene, there's a narration box that says University Lab Building, night.
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing in the panels that tells me they're in a lab. I mean, yes, the woman, that is Juanita, she's in a lab coat, but the surroundings look like a hallway. And then suddenly Willie is shooting at glass something with green liquid in it, and I took it to be a tray full of drinks. Well, it turns out, as you read on, that was chemicals and they were in a lab, and apparently those were beakers, but we really needed to see those beakers before they got blasted to pieces.
Yeah.
And that's the chemical that turns him into Raptor Cop. So yeah, we really needed setup there. We really needed to see something that really looked like a lab with beakers in it.
Yeah, actually, there is a shot before that where Willie the Worm is outside talking about that weed. It's making my skin burn.
Yeah, what was that? I didn't see any follow up on that, at least not in this issue.
That's follow up. That's foreshadowing to him being defeated by weed, or a specific kind of weed.
In the next issue.
In the next issue, when Raptor Cop is on the ropes and he can't do anything to defeat Worm Guy. Worm Guy is going to be. He's going to fall into bushes and die because there was that weed. And so you're going to foreshadow that hard for the bad guy, but you're not going to tell the origin story of what these beakers were, what was in them, why they were there, who the scientist is, what she's working on. None of that stuff is going to happen. We're not getting any of that stuff in this issue.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems to me not lazy, but just lopsided. So criminally lopsided that it just seems that he has no regard for story or storytelling. What he really should do is study. Yeah. Study storytelling. I mean, not the art stuff. The art stuff is fine.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've got just one last little bit here. So after the beakers get splashed on him, it says intensive care unit at University Hospital, day. And then cut to the next page, intensive care unit at University Hospital, day. Now, in between that, some cops had a meeting for one panel in a room, but there's no caption to say where that is. So we've got like caption of one scene, no caption for the next scene, and then the same caption for the same thing. But day doesn't tell us how much time has passed between things, and if we can see the Raptor Cop in the hospital bed, just 5 panels prior, or even just 2 panels prior, we don't need another descriptor telling us the exact same thing: intensive care unit at University Hospital, day. And then below that, next page, Stan's house, day. Now Raptor Cop suddenly fine, no problems. So are we talking about he took the pills and they worked next minute, and so he went home?
Yeah, I was a bit surprised by that he was completely recovered, although then he touches meat and then he starts turning into the Raptor.
Right, but Stan's house, day, again, doesn't tell us anything that isn't obvious in the picture, but leaves out crucial information like 3 months later. Of course, 3 months later doesn't work for that scientist being held hostage in a coffin underground. She'd be dead. But, the whole idea of the coffin underground with the snake around her neck and the little light bulb with the wires leading off is a ridiculous concept in and of itself. So, yeah. show, don't tell. But if there's something that you can't show, like the passage of time specifically, like a large period of time or a very minute amount of time, put that in the box. Stan's house was established in the first couple of pages. You could have had something that kind of set that up again. Like he got back to his house and everything's still wet, for example. Or maybe there's a burnt slice of wet pizza on the floor because he left in a hurry. Whatever it is. And the fact that it's day, well, the window is open and you can see the sunlight.
Is it the same day?
Yeah.
Or 5 days later? Yeah.
That's the most important question that he does not answer. And so these boxes are just horrible. What is the point of that? And it's after that, everything's outside. So you're just kind of like, fuck it.
Well, and then the next panel, it's clearly night.
Yeah.
And the next page.
Well, night, and then he runs off into random forest next to his house, blah, blah, blah. And then suddenly we get control room, inside cave, night. And I'm to believe that the bad guy, Willie the Worm, has a cave, which is his hideout, and he's got, like, Batman computers.
He's a wealthy industrialist by day.
Exactly. Yeah, so I hate to say it because the artwork is so accomplished. Mm-hmm. This book is all kinds of no for me.
Yeah, storytelling is the biggest problem here. And yeah, just kind of thinking out the logistics of the story.
Yeah. The logistics don't work. Yeah.
When you watched Batman as a kid, you enjoyed the colorful heroes and villains, the text sound effects on the screen, the thrill of watching a heroic crime fighter escaping from death traps and taking down bad guys. But the show was devised to interest adults too. What did you miss as a kid? Sexual innuendo.
The penguin's too small for me.
Closeted gay characters.
I like that cape, Batman.
Freudian death traps.
Has the giant clam really swallowed Robin?
Police incompetence.
Bruce Wayne is a millionaire playboy. Hardly a secret identity for Batman.
Whether you're a kid or an adult, there's something to like about our favorite Caped Crusader. Tim and Paul dig for the deeper meanings under the Batmania every other Thursday. What's the podcast's name?
To the Batpoles. To the Batpoles. To the Batpoles.
Next up is a comic called Equilux, and I want to read the email that came with this. Hi, Tim and Mulele. I hope you're both doing excellently. Here are the first 2 issues of my comic Equilux, 15 pages each, including covers, etc. From what I understand, this is a slice of life comic. If there is a more accurate genre definition, please let me know. To give it some context, each issue shows the highlights from an hour in the protagonists' lives. There are 24 issues per cycle, so each cycle of 24 issues covers an entire day. Each issue has 10 panels from the life of the character Areum, A-R-E-U-M, and 2 from Astrid, plus lots of text. Yay. I hope you enjoy. Greetings from Ireland, Karterpiller. Yeah, so Karterpiller is the author of this. And first thing I have to say about this is, by Scott McCloud definitions, I wouldn't say that this is a comic. It's like narration and dialogue and illustrations, but I don't think I could call this sequential art.
It is sequential, but the amount of time between panels is a little bit hard to capture here. But yeah, I have some trouble with the style of it as well. Artistically, it's fine, although some of the color choices are a little bit bewildering to me. Everything seems to be in a kind of brown.
Yeah, kind of like sepia in a lot of cases. Although then they're like sometimes there'll be other colors thrown in, like where she's looking out her window and there's blue and green outdoors, but everything indoors is sepia.
Yeah, yeah, and also the format seems to hinder the story. And although it is kind of curious, it's kind of curious in its styling. I don't feel that there could have been a little bit more to kind of pull the reader in, because when you have a wall of text and then one picture, the picture itself isn't necessary to the story. It's more of a decoration. Because there is so much being described and shown in the text that the picture adds less than that. The idea of comics is more than that, unless we're talking, Silver Age Hulk with the Hulk smash, and then in the caption, and then a picture of the Hulk smashing a tank. That kind of stuff, I think we're a little bit beyond, and this does, I feel, in some ways less than that.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't really, I don't know. I felt like there was too much text and it was kind of hard to read. I mean, my eyes can't handle white text on a black background anymore.
Same.
I get all the ghosting in my eyes.
Well, I think it's also especially computer screens, but if it's just a regular paper, it's not as bad.
And then all caps and no paragraph breaks. It was tough to read.
Also hard, yeah.
And I felt as if a lot of what I was reading wasn't really necessary to know. It felt more like observations and chit chat and not really a story. To me, anyway. Yeah.
No, I felt that exact same thing. And there's a bit of tedium with this format. So the question is, why this format?
Yeah.
Clearly, this person knows what comics is and is trying to do something new, but why? If they there are some comics that I've seen that really play with formatting and panel breakdown and those things.
It seems like she wants to do, from her description in her email, she's like trying to do something like 24 in terms of like showing, each issue is an hour and the next issue is the next hour, but it's not a 24 type of story. It's about this futuristic smart building that people are living in. And so I'm not sure that that's the best approach to a story like this.
Yeah, actually, the conceit of 24 is apparent at the very beginning of the story, with the clicking clock, and Jack Bauer says at the beginning of every episode, the events occur in real time, and so it's very clear what we're doing with this.
Yeah, the comic itself here doesn't explain that. I had to get that from her email.
Right. So the comic is already at a disadvantage with that. And if you were to add that at the beginning, the events of the comic occur in real time, then you're priming the reader for an experience. But if you were to say at the end of the comic, or somewhere in the middle of the comic, the reader would just suddenly understand, you're hoping that they'll enjoy the comic enough to get that far without understanding what the container of this story is. So yeah, it's a bit of a hard read in that sense.
Yeah, you really need to know what it is going into it.
Yeah. Also, the pictures have an extreme lack of detail in them, in that the world is not really fleshed out. And
right, yeah, and you really need to flesh. I mean, the world is the point here, I think, so it needs a lot more fleshing out.
Yeah, and I was also having some problems with the logistics of building a building that size, and it having so many secret things, but being available to the public for to live in. Just seemed like a really odd situation to me. So what happened that this would occur was kind of my question.
Yeah, we need a lot more backstory.
A lot more backstory, yeah. Yeah, and I should say, at a certain point, we moved from white text on black to white and brown text on gray. And then we moved to yellow text on red. All of these are, well, except for the brown and gray, all of them are high contrast. And so it's painful to look at for our old eyes.
Yeah, the yellow on red especially. Ouch.
Yeah. So to that point, please calm the fuck down. And if there is a reason for red, fine. But if it has to be that high contrast of red, understand that you're going to annoy a certain percentage of the readership, like Tim and I, and you're going to burn out my eyes reading this one comic. I don't want to do that. So just calm down. Choose your palette a little more carefully. I mean, I understand that if this is supposed to be the bad guy and he is supposed to make you feel uncomfortable, sure, but make me feel uncomfortable either through the words or through the picture, what the picture depicts, or something like that. But not the task of reading. That is the thing that really killed me about this. It was really hard to get through for those reasons.
Yes.
Yeah. And I should say, I did not get to the second one because it was more of the same. And by that time, I can't.
Yeah, I had to sort of break the usual 30-page deal on this too because it was just too painful to keep going.
Yeah. And same problems for the second issue as for the first. Although the illustration is a little bit better, the reading it is going to be just as painful. So no.
Yeah, this one has red on black in some places.
Yeah. And that doesn't work. So I mean, for me it works a little bit better than the white on black or the red on or the yellow on red. But still, I'm not digging it.
I think red on black, I think, is almost not enough contrast.
Yeah.
So I really have to almost kind of squint to read it.
Yeah, and the thing about slice of life comics, you have to be very, very careful. This one seems to have kind of a fantastical element. If we have a woman with with glass heart syndrome, I think they called it. Yeah. Glass heart syndrome, who is supposed to take care of a cat who can live forever, but is a carnivore and cannot age properly because of whatever reason. They are perpetually just a kitten.
With a ravenous appetite.
Yeah, can only eat meat, and so you're ordering steaks downstairs from the downstairs restaurants. Again.
Yeah, slice of life usually suggests slice of normal life for normal humans that you see every day. But yeah, you're right. This is a little bit too fantastical for that, and it brings up all these questions about what is the world and how did it come to be this way. Where slice of life usually doesn't have those kind of questions.
Yeah. So there are all kinds of why though questions I've got. But none of them seem to be answered. So just in that sense, yeah, it needs a bit of a narrator more than I would say put the dialogue, minimize the dialogue put it into the actual pictures and use the space in between the pictures to narrate the world. That could do a lot for this comic, to help put it into a kind of to answer all the whys, basically, and to also cue the reader to what's going on in the world, rather than this kind of set of interactions that seem to have no point from picture to picture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or maybe even a timing mechanism where every picture that is taken is exactly 5 minutes apart. And you'll have a certain number. Maybe she is doing that already, but it doesn't quite come across in the comic because we get a lot of information about the girl with the alligator that she's chosen as her partner. Was it an alligator?
I don't remember.
Yeah. But anyway, we get a lot of information about her while she's standing in front of a door, and then ringing the doorbell. And then we get the doors open, and we see the kitten, we see the woman, although the woman has no face, which I found kind of odd as a choice here. But then they have their conversation, and there's a Ariam and Unix met earlier on the train, in parentheses below the picture, and I'm kind of like, what is the purpose of this information? And
I suppose because that was not within this hour, so it's a kind of background information.
Sure, but
maybe if that train ride was important, maybe she should have had that in the had a comic about the previous hour.
Yeah. Of all the why those, why that one? Why would you answer that? And that wasn't even a question that I really had. Where did they meet? Well, they live in the same building, so maybe they just know each other, because that's the way people do. But answering this specific one gives me yet another question. Why though? So in that sense, yeah, the storytelling, it has merit, it has possibility, aside from some of the design choices, like the white text on black background, which are specific to older people. I would say anybody over 40 is going to have this problem. That would be Tim and I.
Mm-hmm.
But aside from that, there's a lot of potential for this. But yeah, some structural things and some decisions about what is really necessary for the story and what is not, and setup. It's lacking setup, because as a reader, you've kind of dumped me in this world. I don't know where I am. I don't know who these people are, and I don't know what's going on. But if I'm stuck there in real life, I'll figure it out. But I'm not with this. This is a comic. I can put it down anytime and walk away. You got to put me in a position where if I walk away, I feel like I'm missing something. Then I'll want to come back and see issue 2.
If you enjoy comics analysis on deconstructing comics and critiquing comics, or Bat discussion on To the Bat Polls, support our shows by pledging a monthly donation at patreon.com/deconcomics. Pledge at least $4 a month and you'll get access to our bi-weekly show Spider-Man 1963, a look at the first year of Amazing Spider-Man. In the most recent episode, Kumar and Emmett discuss Amazing Spider-Man 9, The Coming of Electro. Here's a sample of their discussion.
I think in comics, time is space, and I think a 5-minute fight is going to take 12 pages to delineate.
But that's why we have the romantic subplot with Betty, and we have Aunt May's illness. It's creating plot by falling back on tropes that Stan Lee understands from his time doing romance comics.
Right.
And that's all now being introduced to the Spider-Man character.
Yeah.
And that gives you more to work with. And yes, this is a comic which is and the cover proclaims it as the first book-length comic. And that's when I realized, oh, he's creating the 24-page comic here now.
Right.
This is the model that every comic now follows.
Right.
Because previously they were, in effect, single-character anthology stories. You know, you have multiple stories in the one comic. Now it's one story.
Right.
For more analysis of the early Lee Ditko Spider-Man, pledge at least $4 a month to support our shows at patreon.com/deconcomics. Now back to the show. So recently, like over the past month or two, we were talking about a couple of articles from a site called Cosmic News. About one was about whether Marvel would consider shutting, or whether Disney would consider shutting down Marvel and licensing the characters out, and there was one about DC having problems too. So in the kind of Chicago episode of Deconstructing Comics that came out recently, I was talking to some retailers about that question, and they all seemed to say, nope, we're doing fine. And I also talked to Brian Crowley in that episode, who is a comics creator. Mm-hmm. We talked somewhat about Ed Siemienkiewicz, who passed away a couple of years ago, and we talked some about his comics career and about the comics industry in general in the U.S., So he listened to that episode, and he pointed out to me that Cosmic News is one of the sites involved in Comicsgate, and not regarded as a particularly reliable news source. And I looked around online a little bit. I mean, the Wikipedia article about Comicsgate doesn't really name particular sites involved in it, but I found a lot of trashing of Cosmic News on Reddit. And also some comments to when Cosmic News posted that article on Twitter, and a lot of people dissing it and saying, was this put out by a Comicsgate person? Yeah, that's just what I wanted to point out.
So basically, we got our entire story wrong because we heard it from an unreliable source.
Right.
Which led to a rabbit hole that we both fell into.
Yes.
All right. Fair enough. I'd rather that than the end of comics in America as we know it.
Yeah, and it led to some good conversation with the retailers and so forth. So I think it was worthwhile in the end. But just so we know about the source of that story.
Okay. It did lead to an actual question, which was, really? And you went out and got it answered. So I think we're good. But watch your sources.
Yeah. Okay. So do you have any other questions?
Not that I can think of at the moment. I'll let you know if I do have questions, though.
Okay. All right. So we're working on our queue here. But if you would like us to critique your comic, send a PDF or a link to mail@deconstructingcomics.com. We'll read at least 30 pages of it and critique it on the show eventually as we get through our queue here.
But wait a minute, we're not that. Our queue isn't that long, is it? I mean,
we've got these two done, so I think we got 6 others. So not like it's going to take months, but.
And that's like 3 episodes worth of content. People, send your comics in so we don't run out of material.
Yes.
All right.
So till next time, this is Tim.
Wait a minute, I got a question though.
All right.
You sound so resigned from the whole prospect. But have you watched Endgame?
Why would I watch Endgame if I haven't seen the parts that come before Endgame?
I suppose that was the implied question, but are you going to get to that in the theater?
Well, I don't know. I don't really like. I mean, remembering how clueless I felt at the end of Captain Marvel. I don't know. I'd really like to see the other ones before I see that. But I mean, at this point, I'm going to end up missing out on seeing it in the theater.
Yeah. Actually, now that I've seen Endgame, I can be more specific about which movies need to be watched to enjoy that.
I see.
Which ones do they reference the most, kind of thing. But yeah. I would say to the movies that we were going to watch, might have to add another 2 or 3, but not too much more than that.
Okay.
But it's just a matter of when do you want to get on this?
Well, I almost contacted you about setting something up for this holiday week, and then I ended up spending a whole day this week getting my computer to work.
Yeah.
Because my Mac decided that it had completely forgotten how to recognize login passwords.
What?
Yeah, I mean, normally my Mac logs in for me every morning. It's automatic login because I'm the only one who uses this computer.
Right.
I turned it on Wednesday morning and it was on the login screen. I thought, that's strange. I typed in my password. It didn't work. Was on the phone with Apple support for several hours. We tried some other stuff that didn't work. I ended up having to erase the hard drive, reinstall the OS, and then put the data from my Time Machine backup into it. So by then it was Thursday morning. And since then I've been catching up on all the stuff that I had meant to do on Wednesday and wasn't able to.
Right.
So yeah, I would like to do the movies, but kind of trying to get back to zero here.
Okay. Well, let me know when you're ready, and yeah, I've got my next Netflix all queued up and ready to go. So
okay.
Yeah. And Mulele.
And thanks for listening to Critiquing Comics. We'll critique 2 more comics next week. See you then.